So this video is all about closets. So if you follow me on Instagram, then you know exactly the closet I'm referring to. A while ago, I got the opportunity to transfer my husband's closet from this to this. And yes, I am so proud of the transformation. So unfortunately, when I filmed this video, I did not shoot it for YouTube, but I figured out a way to give you guys step by step how I did it, the tools you'll need, as well as the products you'll need. Hopefully, if you follow these steps, you'll be able to transform your closet, probably even better than I did. Stay tuned. Okay, so first thing up, I'm gonna go through a list of tools. Bear with me, it's gonna sound kind of long, but some of these tools are pretty inexpensive, and you probably already have them, so I'm gonna read them because there's a lot of them. So first, you'll need a drill. You need 3-inch wood screws, a Craig jig for pocket holes, as well as pocket hole screws. You need a brad nail gun, wood glue, a level, a multi-tool, or they call it an oscillating tool, miter saw, or you can use a circular saw, you can use a table saw, whichever one you have, as long as it can cut wood with precision. Utility knife, a crowbar, you're gonna need clothes rods, of course, wood filler, sanding block, a stud finder, caulk and caulk gun, and finally just paint. So I know that sounds like a lot, but there is links to all of these tools in the description. So if you want to take a look at the ones that I personally use and love, make sure you click on the link, and you can also see the list down there if you forgot everything I just said. All right, so next up, I use 4 different wood products for this closet. Now, all of this is completely optional, completely up to you and your taste and your budget. So for me, I use 5 sheets, so 4-foot by 8-foot sheets of 3/4 inch plywood. That's a mouthful. So that plywood, I actually had them cut it for me at Home Depot, which I'm gonna tell you about how and why you should do that. Also, I did a 2x4. So I think I used about 6 2x4s for this project. It really just depends on the size of your closet, how much you need. I suggest trying to take some measurements and then go in and buy your wood. And then lastly, for the trim and to finish it all up, I use 1x2x8s. And then I also use 1x4x8. So that is completely optional if you do the 1x4, but I highly recommend you do the 1x2 because it just takes the closet from DIY to professionally done. Okay, so I'm gonna try to go through this quickly, but I'm gonna also put videos up for reference to what I'm referring to, and hopefully it'll all make sense. So first, the way that our closet was set up is we had these wire racks on the wall. Most newer houses have them, or if you have a custom house and you don't have it, I envy you. But the first thing is you want to take the wire racks out of the wall. What I learned is that ours were, some parts of you had to pull it and some parts you had to screw. Use a screwdriver or a drill, your preference, but just make sure you get them out the wall. What you're gonna find once you remove them from the wall is that they leave pretty large holes. So I did use a putty, like a drywall putty, to fill in those holes and sand it just so the wall would look smooth. After that, I removed the baseboards. When doing any type of built-in or anything that you want to look super custom and professional, remove your baseboards. Removing baseboards sucks. I honestly hate it, but it is definitely worth it. So this is where your crowbar comes into place. This is where, let's see. Yeah, you wanna make sure you use a crowbar. Also, it hit me, ding. So, you also want to make sure that you're very careful when pulling your baseboard off. So usually baseboards are on the wall with caulk. So what you'll do is score the caulk, basically just take a utility knife and go in by the wall and the baseboard and cut the caulk, and then take your crowbar and slowly pull it away from the wall. Be very careful. I put a hole in our drywall because I was rushing. Luckily I could cover it up, but just make sure you're careful with this process. The other thing that I did with the baseboards is I didn't want to remove the rest of the wall on the other side. So that's where the multi-tool or the oscillating tool, which link is down in the description, you can use that to cut half of your baseboard, so you don't have to remove the whole thing. You only remove what you don't need. So if you look up in this video, this should make a little bit more sense as to what I'm saying. Once you have the baseboard removed, what you want to do is, if you have carpet, or if you don't, then skip this step. But if you have carpet, I went through and I removed it from the width that I wanted to leave for the closet space. And so the way that I determined the width for this project is, I wanted the closet to go from the back of the wall up into the door frame. So for us, that was about 10 inches, give or take a 1/4 of an inch or 1/8 of an inch. And so I made sure to only remove that much carpet. Give yourself some wiggle room. You don't want to remove too much, but if you plan to do it that way, that's the best approach. Or you could just take the carpet out altogether and paint the floor, add cool floors in your closet, completely your choice. Once the carpet is removed, that is when you're going to take your 2x4s and build a base. So what the 2x4s are for is just stability and to give you a nice platform or a foundation for your closet to sit on. The 2x4s are actually going to be screwed into your studs of your wall. So that's where those 3-inch wood screws come in. You are going to find the studs in the wall and make sure your platform's sitting flat on the floor, and screw that 2x4 into the wall, and then you're simply just going to build a foundation similar to what I did. Placement just depends on, I kind of use my best judgment for placement of where I put the middle pieces in. I also tried to put them where there wasn't a stud so that I could easily put them in. Remember when I said you want to get, if you buy your wood from Home Depot or Lowe's, to have them rip it down for you? This is why. So you want to have each board ripped or cut at the same width. So for this closet, we did 10 inches and 1/4, and I wanted every single board to be cut at the same length. So what that gave me was 4 boards that were 8 foot long and also 10 inches wide. So I used that to make the entire frame of the closet, including the shelves, and it made sure that everything lined up perfectly. It also allowed me to get that 4 foot by 8 foot board into my car because I do not have a truck. So if you live next to a hardware store, or if you have a truck and you can rip your own wood, this isn't very important. But if you don't, there is ways of working around that, and I highly suggest doing that. So now that you have your board and you have your foundation, what you want to do is take one of your boards, cut it to the length of the closet. Hopefully this video will give you a good reference point. And you want to take your wood screws and screw that board into your 2x4s. Make sure it's level, make sure it's super sturdy, because you don't want it not to be level and your closet ends up looking very lopsided or crooked. So this part is, like I said, very much attention to detail. A good foundation is going to make a good final product in the end. Next step is we're just going to simply build a box, so to speak. So for me, this is my process. If you come up with a better option, I suggest go for it, but this is just the way that was easier for me. So when you take those boards, I actually wanted this closet to go 8 foot up, so I did not cut the length. We have 9 or 10 foot ceilings, so this was perfect for us, and it allowed us to have a gap at the top just by putting that 8 foot board up there. So we had it, hopefully this makes sense if you're watching the video in the corner. So I had a board that I wanted to sit on one wall, and I had one that I wanted to sit on the other wall. So the best way that I did that was I used liquid nails, and then I also used my brad nailer to secure it into the wall. But before that, this is where your pocket holes come in. So if you don't know what a pocket hole is, it is essential, I think, in any type of carpentry or woodworking product. Pocket holes give you such a strong connection, and it's like the best way and looking way to connect your wood. So what I did was I made pocket holes at the top and the bottom of each board so that I could secure those horizontal boards into the base and one into the top of the board. Okay, so hopefully this is all making sense to you. So for me, I had 3 boards on the long side. I had one that was liquid nailed and nailed into the wall on one side. I had a board in the middle, then I had another board on the other side. So essentially I'm making this frame for a nice box where the back is actually the wall. So once I have my pocket holes, I put the pocket holes and use my drill to put those pocket hole screws into the platform, and then I put my top piece of plywood on, and then I put pocket holes into the top. This should give you such a secure fit for those boards, and I feel like if you should be able to shake them and they don't budge. This is to create the frame of what your closet is going to look like. So I'm just going to talk to you about how I chose to do the shelves. So because in most houses walls are not completely straight, so what I learned is that these walls were a little curved at some points, which made it where I had to literally measure the width of each shelf and cut it and then dry fit it. I suggest doing that just because you don't want to waste wood, and you want to make sure that it's a tight fit, not too tight where you can't get it in between the 2 boards, but tight enough where you don't have large gaps in between your shelf and your wall. The final step is just details. This is where we take the closet and we make it look just clean and beautiful by adding your trim pieces. So I this is the board I use. I think this is called Prime 1x2x8, but this is actually like the cheapest one that I can find, and it already comes pre-primed, which makes it really good for painting. Now, if you want to stain your closet or you want a really nice wood finish, I would suggest getting like a poplar or something that is a wood tone that you can stain and it'll look really good. Also use wood conditioner if you're going to stain, to try to give you an even color. But you're going to put your 1x2 on the ends of all the pieces of plywood that's exposed. And so what it's going to do is create a nice trim effect. I think this is really what made that closet look really good. And for the shelves, I like to line up my trim and my shelf so that you're getting a nice clean finish. Like, I don't like to have it where there's a lip, if that makes sense. So essentially, like, you want it to be a straight flush line across the top when you're covering your plywood. Getting a clean miter cut is essential, especially if you're going to have corners in your closet. And all a miter cut is where we're essentially going to make a 90-degree angle, but to do that we have to split it in half and do 2 45-degree cuts. It took me a while to perfect this cut, and I learned that the trick to it is making sure if you're using a miter saw to go really slow and make sure the wood is either clamped or really stable so that you can get a very clean cut. So usually for our closet, I had to do miter cuts in the corners of the board, and as you can see, if you get it clean, it'll look very seamless. Once you glue it and nail it together, it'll just give you this very clean look. I think it looks really good this way than to just cut it and have them jump like that. It just makes it look a lot more professional. So the final steps is just going to be taking your caulk gun and going through and literally caulking every seam that you see. When I say I used to hate caulk, because it is a finesse to getting a really clean looking caulk line, and I also hate saying that word. I know I'm not saying it right. But when you caulk a seam, the best method is to take your caulk gun and cut it at an angle and take it really slow as you're pressing the caulk into the seams, and then also using a wet finger to smooth it out. Make sure it looks smooth. If it looks bumpy, it's gonna dry bumpy, and it's not gonna create the illusion of a clean seam. So it's very important to make sure you get that right. After that, that's when you can paint. Now, I chose to paint my wood before I installed it, just so that I was just doing touch-up paint in the sections that I needed to do. So you can do that, or you can spray paint the closet. It's really up to you. Alright, so I hope those steps helped you and explained some of the process. I hope the videos was also helpful. I promise you I plan on doing another closet where I'm gonna actually have drawers and some more elements to it. So stay subscribed if you want to see that filmed in real time. Instead of me trying to talk you through the steps, I can actually show you the steps. And I think that's gonna be really helpful. But until then, be courageous, be strong, and go out and build some